I'm an aerospace engineer by day, a jiu-jitsu black belt by night, but a full-time nerd. What it really comes down to is just I'm a big kid who still likes to dress up as a superhero. The only thing that's changed since I was a kid is now more heroes look like me.
Woo!
As a kid, I spent most of my time not really wanting to speak up or stand out, mostly because of where I grew up and how I was raised. But with the shift in Asian representation and all the good things coming out of the comics and movies, I was inspired to put this panel on, and I'm putting it on at all the local SoCal conventions. And I try to get a different group of creators together and share all our experiences. So next we have Christie.
Hi, I'm a Los Angeles-based artist and illustrator. I am the creator of Demon Bitch, so kids, close your eyes. My background is mostly in underground and independent comics. I self-publish. I'm also the president of CAPS, Comic Art Professional Society. We do have a booth in 2280. And I don't know how I got there because a lot of the people write for Garfield and other syndicated things, but hey, it was founded by Sergio Aragonés, Mad Magazine, I guess it fits. Basically, I've just been also doing my own publishing and starting another publishing company as well. Oh yeah, and I'm also starting an Asian comic creator event called Asian Invasion as well.
Woo!
My name is Luen Yang. I write and draw graphic novels, and I also write superhero comics. And I had the pleasure of working on a superhero comic called Monkey Prince with some of the folks on this panel. And Justin is cosplaying Monkey Prince. That's like the most amazing cosplay I've seen.
You look amazing.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
You guys are
last year.
inspiration.
Absolutely amazing. But I'm really happy to be here.
Hi, my name is Bernard Chang. I'm a comic book artist. I started when I was 20, and aside from being a professional basketball player, as a dream as a kid, this is the next best thing. Life has its weird twists and turns, but the Monkey Prince has been a lifelong journey. When I was a kid, my family immigrated to the States when I was 6. And I started taking a liking to superhero books, in the drugstore. And I read Spider-Man, Batman, Superman. And my father came to me one night and said, how about, would you like to read stories about a Chinese superhero? And so he had his friends in Taiwan send him a book called Journey to the West. And he would read to me a few pages every night before I went to sleep. And this was before the internet, and the book had no pictures, just all words. I couldn't read Chinese at the time. But I would go to sleep trying to imagine these stories about Sun Wukong and Zhu Bajian. And now, as an adult, I get to kind of revisit a lot of those childhood dreams and memories and put it into a story with wonderful people. And Gene, I've always wanted to work with him since I read American Born Chinese, and Jessica I've worked with at DC. And so it's just, it's great to be here, and it's great to share with you guys kind of a childhood dream come true.
Christie, I'm really happy to get you on here. I tried to get you on LA, but there's conflicting schedules, so I'm very happy she's here.
I'm glad to be here.
So can you tell us a little more about some of your experiences breaking into the industry, and then go into a little bit more about what Asian Invasion is and how it came about?
Well, Hi, Rogan. I guess it started off when I was little. And when I was little, people say, oh, I wasn't accepted because of this. It's like, basically by default, a lot of people just said no to me if I wanted to do something, which I didn't understand because it wasn't really necessarily bad. So I guess my breaking into comics started when I was a little girl. Now, if you're Asian, my parents are Korean. I'm the first generation. And they wanted me to go to Stanford, so they do this kind of little brainwashing thing. Oh, we're going to go to Stanford. You want to look at the campus, right? And immediately I went straight to the underground and indie comics of the college bookstore. So that kind of started me in comics. Then I got introduced to anime, manga, and manhwa from visiting my relatives and all that. And then I would read comics, DC and Marvel. So I did an Image and it just would graduate. But I was always drawn to underground comics. So what made me start is that after overthinking a number of years, I just got really angry and I just started drawing a bunch of comics and somehow that worked. So with Asian Invasion, that also started out of anger. What that was, I'm Korean, so I guess we're kind of known for that, amongst other things. So what I did was that for Asian Invasion as of last year, COVID was ending, but we knew on the West Coast a lot of cons closed suddenly due to a resurgence. And seeing some of my friends be so disheartened and angry because they wanted to go out and earn money at doing what they loved. And that really upset me, and I said, well, I don't like this. So I talked to June over at the Manhattan Beach Comic Bug. I said, well, you're Japanese, they're not going to give you any crap if I do Asian Invasion, Yellow Peril. So it was playing on that whole, those isms. Like, I think, if anybody knows of the Slants, they're a punk band. They actually went into the Supreme Court of the United States of America, and they won the right to name themselves as Slants because the trademark office said, no, you can't name yourselves that. So I ended up just doing Asian Invasion. It's a small little event, but it was a bunch of Asian creators, both artists, comic, general merchandise, etc., etc. I've had the Luen twins there, and we had it, and it was great. They want to do it again. We're going to do it again in Manhattan Beach on, I believe, the 27th, the last Saturday of AAPI. We're aiming to have it over in Northern California on 5/13. That's the tentative date. Don't hold me to it, but we're working on that too. But I realized that people really wanted this, and I was surprised there wasn't more.
Rest of it's Shang-Chi, and I stopped by his booth to say hi. And I really like the Monkey Prince. I was just talking to him. He saw my Shang-Chi, and he's like, hey, you got to do Monkey Prince next. So that kind of set some wheels in motion, and I started formulating how I was going to put it together. But Brian, can you go into a little bit on creating the Monkey Prince, like how the look of it, and being able to incorporate your own kind of spin on things for it?
I mean, just sitting down, talking with Jessica and Jean when we first started the project, we knew that it was going to be a teenager. We were looking at kind of some traditional armor, but we also felt that it was important to reflect kind of a younger style. And so some of the colors too, like the choice of a deeper red color, reflected a little bit more of a traditional soldier or warrior. But then the gold is obviously kind of regal and being reflective of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. But then, of course, we have to throw in some sneakers. So it was right around the time I had my exclusive sneakers come out. So I said, well, why not self-promote a little bit?
That was all Bernard. Like, me and Gene didn't say, like, hey, put some sneakers on him. He just, like, put in the sketch, and I was like, whoa, this is the Monkey Prince. You just nailed it without just talking. We just kind of knew how this kid should look like. And I think the sneakers was kind of what made me get who this character is.
And did you catch that? He has his own sneakers. Bernard Chang has his own sneakers. How hardcore is that?
I know, I was trying to find a pair, but I found the next Thank you.
But also, when we were creating the Monkey Prince, we had so many Zoom calls. There was one that was like 3 hours long where we were just like, you know, Superman has the S, that's just like so iconic, and Batman's the bat, like, what do we do with Monkey Prince? And so we just sat around like talking with Bernard, he was just sketching the whole time, and he was just like, how about an M, but also evocative of the mountain, because Monkey King is from Flute Fire Mountain, so he kind of incorporated both those items. I thought that was really, really clever.
That was like another moment where I said, okay guys, give me like a day or two, and I went to sleep. And really, in all truthfulness, I went to sleep and I dreamt about what this logo could look like. And
I haven't seen it. This is it right here.
yeah, I went through a few different variations of it. And Gene also had a couple of sketches earlier on too. And so, but it's like this is so magical in terms of, I'm trying to tap into the younger 7, 8-year-old version of me and how I would have gone to sleep imagining what this new hero would look like in our modern day world. And because all DC heroes, they all have like an iconic logo, an iconic Superman S, Batman, Simple, Flash, Wonder Woman. So we wanted to come up with a logo that would be iconic and representational for our new hero.
I think it's beautiful that your 7-year-old self in your dream was like, do this, Bernard, trust me.
I woke up and I was like, oh wow, I shocked myself that I could actually dream something. A lot of times I'm dreaming like I'm working and I'm always late.
Oh, same.
We did talk a lot about that logo. We talked about how DC, a lot of the superhero logos are letters that aren't letters, right? Like Superman's S, it looks like an S, but in story it's actually a Kryptonian symbol for hope. And then Aquaman's A isn't actually an A, it's actually like a Atlantean hieroglyph. Is that right? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we wanted something like that as well for Monkey Prince, where it looks like an M, but it's actually also like a visual representation of Flower Fruit Mountain, which was Monkey King's point of origin. I do also want to say, Christie, like the Asian invasion thing you're talking about, it reminds me a lot of this event that used to happen. I think it's still going on in Northern California called Aperture,
Okay.
where it's a group of Asian American artists that get together once a year in San Francisco. And my friends and I would go a lot in our 20s, and it was so formative. I feel like I learned so much and had so many like maybe limitations in my own head that were broken at those events. I'm so happy you're doing something like that here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's just something I just get an idea to do, and I just do it. I don't really think about, and it might kind of sound bad, like I don't try to think about all the implications. I just like, oh, I should just do this, and it ends up being this really good thing.
Did it come to you in a dream?
No, I think I was just pissed off.
Aren't we all?
Yes. Yes, the anger's real.
The superheroes, they inspire a lot of cosplay, and I'm a cosplayer, so cosplay has opened up a lot of opportunities for me, from meeting all these amazing creators and artists, to being able to attend Marvel premieres with my wife, to even being able to visit the set of American Horror Chinese, thanks to Gene. Jessica, can you go into, I heard you dabbled a little bit in cosplay in your earlier days.
Oh, I totally did. I almost cosplayed today, but I was like, gotta represent DC and be professional, I guess. But yeah, I used to cosplay. I did Jubilee one time because there's not a lot of Asian representation, and I feel like we're doing a lot better the last few years, which is fantastic. I also did the Catwoman wedding dress, which was awesome. I took like 2 weeks just sewing that together. But now most of my things are just at DC Halloween events. And I'm hoping to continue creating new Asian characters so that other people can see themselves in these characters and want to cosplay. I feel like we cosplay because we love something so much that the closest thing we can get to it is to just be it. That's like why cosplay is so special and why cons are so special. Because then you see other people put in the work and they love that, character so much, and then when you say you look great, there's just some magic that connects. And I want to create more of that for Asian representation, and that's why we have Monkey Prince. That's why we have like you wearing that, because we created it. And I'm looking forward to doing more in We Are Legends, this initiative I have coming out. Not only that, in We Are Legends, we have Indian characters, Southeast Asian. We don't really get a lot of that. And so I'm looking forward to seeing some cosplay made for the visual. And yeah, I cosplayed as Cass Kane yesterday when I did the Dawn of DC panel, because I really had to represent. So DC does have a lot of Asian characters that I'm very proud of. And so a few years ago, I did Festival of Heroes, which is the first DC Comics Asian anthology, to celebrate all the Asian heroes that we have. Oh, I see you raising it up. We have a few. And just to see like how far we've come in like 80 plus years with all these Asian characters, Cass Kane, the Atom, Katana, there's so many. And that's also where we introduced the Monkey Prince for the first time. Now, when we were pitching and doing this book, which is always, you know, making comics takes time. In the middle of it is when all the Stop Asian Hate things were happening. And so it became kind of difficult to be doing this work, but also cathartic. Because we were creating something to let that kid in a comic book store feel like, hey, these heroes look like me, I'm not the other. Like, I deserve to be in DC Comics as well, and to be the main stories. And so when that book came out, it meant a lot to me for it to come out during the pandemic and all of that. And I hope to continue creating more representation. That's really, really important, so that the next generation of kids didn't kind of go through, I'm guessing, what we did when we were younger. But then again, I'm really lucky to have grown up in California. I didn't really get a lot of weird, you know, your lunch smells weird sort of a thing. Like, I grew up in Garden Grove, so everyone had like fish sauce in their lunch, and I was like, can I have some of that? But I can't speak, you know, for all the other states, and maybe not as diverse locations.
I was actually speaking as I grew up in a mostly white area. And I was speaking with one of my friends earlier, and we were just discussing the same problems we had as a kid growing up and feeling like left out of everything and felt segregated from everybody. So having that common bond and being able to connect with other cosplayers in that same thing is amazing.
See, the thing is that for me, like, I grew up in California too, but whenever somebody would, like, I would actually go out of my way to disturb people. So I never, you know, like, oh look, yeah, right? I was looking for that, and I wanted to eat it, and I told this one guy that, he started crying, and I thought that was great.
Does that work in your comic?
I think I make a lot of people cry.
You probably deserved it.
Oh, they do.
So pretty cool story. Exactly 1 year ago at this WonderCon, I was standing outside one of the conventions rooms just chatting with a bunch of friends. And someone tapped my shoulder. I was dressed as Shang-Chi. So I tapped my shoulder and was like, hey, can you want to take a picture with the writer? It's right there. And actually, I knew exactly, as soon as he said it, I knew exactly who it was. I was like, Gene is here now? I didn't even know he was at WonderCon. So Gene came up, we took a picture, got to chatting. And then a couple weeks later, he sent me a DM. He was like, hey, you think you might want to help consult on something for cosplay on American-born Chinese? And I was like, I can't say no to that. But I hate to say it, but I didn't read it. I knew about it, and I had never read it until Gene mentioned it. So as soon as he mentioned that, I immediately picked it up. And I got through it in probably 2 hours. And as soon as I finished it, I mentioned the DM Gene. I'm like, Gene, I've never felt more seen in my entire life after reading this. And it's hit me so hard, just seeing my life story being told. And I figure there's a lot of other Asian kids who have gone through the same thing. So thanks to, big in part to Gene, I've been inspired to put this panel on and share the stories and get it out there. Gene, do you think you can talk a little bit about American
Sure.
Born
Well,
Chinese?
thank you for all those kind words. American Born Chinese, the book came out in 2006, and I began it as a self-published book, which really just meant I would draw a chapter and I would take it to my local Kinko's. You guys know what Kinko's is?
Yeah.
Younger might not know what that is. It's like a place where you can photocopy things. You know what photocopying is? From what I could see, there are 2 exceptions to that. Number 1 is sports. Sports teams will sit next to each other regardless of their cultural background. Number 2 are like the anime manga kids and the cosplayers. They'll sit next to each other regardless of cultural background. So, cosplay ended up being a part of the show in part because of a little bit of that. The showrunner's guy named Kelvin Yu, who works on Bob's Burgers, and he wanted to hit on that very lightly, not in a very explicit way, but cosplay ended up being a part of the show. And he was like, I've never cosplayed before, do you know any experts? And I was like, I just met this dude who cosplayed Shang-Chi like 2 weeks ago. And then I put him in touch, and Justin and his wife were gracious enough to go and consult with the show. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I mean, like Oscar winners, Michelle Yeoh and Ki-Hui Kwan.
Yeah, the show's been really weird. It's like the whole thing has been surreal. Yeah, the 2 of our cast members ended up becoming Oscar winners.
It was funny. I was like, "Oh, Gene, are you gonna have a chance to look at this Monkey Prince lettering proof?" And he's like, "Yeah. I'm in the middle of something. I'll get back to it." Then 30 minutes later, he sends it in, and then sends me a picture of him just with Michelle Yeoh, like, "Oh, I was busy doing this." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah, so if we could speak a little bit on where we think the representation is at the moment and how much we see it increasing and improving from here on. Now, that's what each of us think. Christie?
Well, with representation for me, it's just like, I kind of just go and do it. And I know that's kind of strange to say, but it's like, we're all individuals. And no, I'm not going to go and launch this whole other thing about being individuals and going Mr. Rogers on you. But I think just essentially, if you have this impetus of going forward with your own experiences and owning your own space, because I think sometimes we psych ourselves out. Like, one of the questions is, how do I deal with being a woman? How do I deal with this? And I said, I really kind of don't think about it. I just do it. I just own my own space no matter where I am. It's because, even in my own groups that I'm supposed to be good at, sometimes I wasn't accepted because I wasn't exactly this person or this subgroup of person or this cluster of people. I was just whoever I was. So I said, fine, I'll just own my own space. So I just do it. I mean, in CAPS, I have to direct a board of guys. Some people say, oh, how about a board of guys? Like, how do you deal with it? I said, I don't know, I just do it. So I just own my own space. I speak with my own authority. And I think with representation, no matter who you are, I think that would resonate with all of us. So for me, owning my own space and answering to my own authority and speaking with my own authority is much more empowering. Because if you're relating to anything else, you are giving your power away to something else. That is what I felt.
That kid in school the day after those winnings felt a little bit more proud of who he is and stuff like that. So I feel like with the power we have in creating media, we should just continue doing what we're doing. And it's not just about like showing Asian things. A lot of who we see ourselves, we're just a person. So, in We Are Legends, the initiative I have coming out, these are just good stories. These are just cool characters who just so happen to be Asian. So I feel like that is the future of what we should start creating. Not just like reclaiming things that were made 30 years ago by white people. We should continue to create stories and just push forward. My hope is that we stop having to create Yellow Peril stuff or like Asian things. It just becomes like content. Like that's the hope.
I think that's why I kind of wanted to do my own thing and be kind of a jerk, because like I said, oh look at this yet another Sakura cherry blossom fucking festival. And I didn't like that after a while. I was like, just let me just do a thing, okay? So that was it. I love it.
I taught for a while at Hamlin University. I taught as part of an MFA program, so most of my students were adults who were interested in writing for children and young adults. And I had this one student, brilliant, who wrote a critical paper that examined representation of minorities in American children's books. And what she found was a certain pattern. So the pattern began with no representation at all. And then the first representation of a minority group was as either villains or as comic relief. And then after that, you had a set of stories where it was really about the pain of the minority experience. And I do think that American More Chinese fits somewhat in this category. And according to her, the final category was one where you had minority characters, and whatever it was that made them the minority, like their cultural background, whatever it was woven into the story, but it wasn't necessarily the focus of the story. So that is really what I'd like to see in our future. And I think we're moving in that direction. I do think like We Are Legends is a part of that, and we're seeing that in the movies and the television series that are coming out. And that makes me very hopeful. What makes me not hopeful, though, is it does seem like America's progress in this area is K-shaped. You know, like how people describe the economic recovery after the pandemic is K-shaped. Certain communities are going to recover very quickly, and others are going to fall behind. I feel like it's kind of happening like that now, right? In certain communities, it feels like we are already living in the future. And in other communities, with book banning and all sorts of other things, it feels like we're falling backwards into the past.
How about you, Bernard? Do you have any thoughts on?
Comics in itself, to me, has always been the one American entertainment medium that has probably the greatest Asian creator representation. You know, what other industry can you say basically our Michael Jordan is Jim Lee? And you know, when I grew up as a young artist, back then, you know, we had no internet, so I picked up Jim's first Alpha Flight book, and I see the name Jim Lee, but there's no picture associated with that. You know, I couldn't find what it looked like. And it wasn't until I got to college that I picked up another X-Men book that had the same Jim Lee name, but by then there was Wizard magazine, so I could see a picture of him, and then I could see that there was J. Lee and Wills Portasio. And so I think the other night I was at a workshop with a lecture series with Garrett Seamus, and he mentioned, you know, out of the 7 Marvel artists that won and formed Image, you know, 2 of those were Asian Americans, Jim Lee and Wills Portasio. And so there's a lot of like, but again, as an artist, we're kind of hidden in our studios, dark studios, drawing away, you know, in the middle of the night, and you don't really get to see people. But because of, I think, the internet, because of conventions, now there's a lot more exposure, and we really get to share and see each other, and, you know, kind of sit on a panel and talk about all of these things, which is, I really think, the magic of comics. Even though it is a book, you know, where you kind of read it by yourself, but there is a much stronger community involved in that.
Yeah. My very first panel, I had Janice Chang on here. She was telling me that same story, how she's been in the industry for over 30 years, and she's worked with countless Asian creators, but just having them be able to be in one place at the same time is pretty amazing.
It's also important, I think, for parents of our generation or this generation to encourage, if you have a child that's kind of leaning towards a more creative path, to encourage that. It's, you know, to be an artist, to be a writer, it really requires a lot of time and effort of study. It's just like a professional athlete. To make it into the NBA, you have to, you know, start playing sports at a young age. There are fewer working comic book artists for Marvel or DC than there are active players in the NBA right now today. So it is extremely difficult to kind of get into a position like that, because you have to, you know, put in your 10,000 hours. So it's great to see, come to the conventions, you see little kids, and they'll bring their sketchbooks and, you know, give them little pointers and tips. But I'm really curious to see what the next generation brings, and how kind of trailblazing to a certain point, but then it's also passing the baton, and how does that race continues.
That have good representation that make you go, wow, that's awesome. and it's doing everything everywhere all at once. In addition to that, what are the things where you're like, that is awesome, that makes me feel good, we need more of that. Oh, I also saw Joyride. I want to see that when that comes out too. That's right.
Yeah, I saw the trailer to Joyride. I didn't see the actual movie, and that trailer made me, like, I laughed so much. I ended up watching it like 12 times in a row. That trailer looks so good. So that's one. That's one.
You guys have any?
Abbott Elementary, I see is like really, really diverse, which I love, because you see a wide range of, different personalities within a race. Like, that's how you succeed. You don't want to just show everyone as heroic or villainous. It's everything in between. So I think that's the important thing.
I want to say for me, like one project, but I mean, a convention like this, when you walk down Artist Alley, and there's like 5 or 6 rows, and you see the many diverse faces that are out there, the different artists and writers, and then the various styles of work that they're putting out too. I think to me, that's probably the most encouraging. And then you can actually go up and talk to them and interact and kind of get their backstory and, where they're headed. To me, that's probably the most inspirational, to meet them in person.